There's a version of the dropshipping math that produces $10,000 a month. There's another version, built from exactly the same inputs, that produces negative $87 a day. The difference isn't which version is right. The difference is which variables each version includes. The one you see in the YouTube videos leaves four of them out. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which numbers are missing from the income projections you've been shown, and how to run the real math yourself before you commit a dollar or a week of your time to anything. Side hustle content follows a reliable format. You get a success story, someone who turned a few $100s and a laptop into a life that looks completely different. You get a rating system designed to make every option feel accessible. And you get an income projection that shows you precisely how many sales, clients, or deals you'd need to hit $10,000 a month. The math in those projections is presented as simple, and on the surface it is. 13 sales a day at $25 net profit each. That's $325 a day, or roughly $10,000 a month. Clean, logical, repeatable. What the format doesn't include are the assumptions that make the math work, because the income projection isn't wrong, it's conditional. It assumes a specific set of inputs that don't describe where most people start. And nobody in those videos explains which assumptions are doing the heavy lifting, or what it costs to put them in place. That's not dishonesty, it's how the format is built. The goal of that content is to generate enough belief that you take action. A full cost breakdown doesn't serve that goal, but it serves yours. Every side hustle income projection you've ever seen is accurate under specific conditions. The dropshipping math works if your customer acquisition cost is at or near zero. The eBay math works if you've already built a seller reputation and aren't competing for visibility. The brand deal flipping math works if you already have relationships on both sides of the table. Most people starting out don't have any of those conditions, and building them, that's where the real cost lives. That's the part the projection assumes away without saying so. There are three variables that almost never appear in these income breakdowns. They're the variables that determine, more than anything else, whether the math holds up once you're inside the model. The first is customer acquisition cost. The dropshipping scenario in these videos typically implies you have a product and buyers will find it. In reality, a new store with no traffic history and no brand recognition gets almost no organic visitors. You're buying them. To generate 13 daily sales with an industry average 2.3% conversion rate, you need roughly 565 store visitors per day. At a realistic cost per click of 73 cents on paid social for a new e-commerce store, that's approximately $412 per day in ad spend. Your 13 sales at $25 gross profit each comes to $325. Subtract the $412 in ads and you're at negative $87 a day. The math hasn't failed. The assumption changed. You replaced free traffic with paid traffic and the calculation reversed. This doesn't mean the dropshipping model doesn't work. It means the model requires a profitable ad campaign before it works. Finding that configuration typically takes 3 to 6 months and between $2,000 and $8,000 in test budget before the numbers turn positive. That cost doesn't appear anywhere in the video. The second is platform extraction. Take eBay. The fee structure runs to a final value fee of 13.25 to 15% of the total transaction. And the word total matters because eBay charges on the full amount including shipping, not just the item price. Add promoted listings at 3 to 5%, which most new sellers run to appear in search results, and you're losing 17 to 20% before you've touched your cost of goods. Here's what that looks like on a specific sale. You list a gaming accessory at $47, eBay's final value fee at 14%, $6.58. Per order processing fee, 30 cents, promoted listing at 4%, $1.88. Shipping supplies, $1.20. That's $9.96 off the top before you've paid for the item. If you sourced it for $21, you net $16.04 per sale. At 20 sales a week, that's $1,283 a month. A real number, an honest one. Just a long way from $317,000 a year. The third is the cost of your time. This one gets omitted almost universally. I think it's because treating your own hours as a hard financial number feels like pessimism. But it's the variable that causes the most hidden damage because it interacts with everything else already running in your financial life. Survey data puts the average side hustle time commitment at 11 to 16 hours per week, at an opportunity cost of $18 per hour, roughly the US median hourly wage. That's between $198 and $288 per week in time value committed. Against a median side hustle income of $200 a month, which works out to roughly $46 a week, you're running at a deep deficit throughout the early period. The break even point is months further out than the income projection implies. That gap hits hardest for anyone with a day job they need to protect, a schedule that isn't flexible, or an emergency fund they'll draw down during the months the hustle is still in the red. Let me put both versions of the dropshipping calculations side by side. Version 1, the version in the video, $80 product, $30 cost of goods, $25 net profit after a general costs deduction, 13 sales a day, $10,000 a month, clean. Version 2, with the missing variables, same $80 product, same $30 in goods, add $412 per day in paid traffic to hit the required visitor volume. Add platform and payment fees of approximately $12 per sale. Add $1.20 per unit in fulfillment overhead. Net on 13 daily sales in month 1, roughly negative $80 to negative $100 depending on ad efficiency. By month 4, with a well-optimized campaign, you might approach break even. By month 6, if the product still has margin and hasn't attracted heavier competition, a realistic net for someone executing consistently is $800 to $1,300 per month. That's a plausible outcome, an honest one. It's also the outcome that requires absorbing the early losses, burning through the test budget, and still being in the game when the math finally turns. The version in the video isn't a lie, it's the ceiling, the number you can approach once the real variables have run their course. Before starting any side hustle, run what I think of as the full cost audit. 4 questions. 1. What does it cost to get a customer? Not the product, not the platform fee. What is the real cost of putting one new buyer in front of your offer? If you can't answer that number, the income projection is sitting on an invisible assumption. 2. What percentage does the platform take and from what? Most people calculate fees against the item price. eBay charges on the full transaction, including shipping. That distinction across hundreds of sales moves the number significantly. 3. What does an hour of your time cost? Not what your job pays you. What the hour costs when you factor in what you'd otherwise do with it. That figure belongs in the model. 4. What's the realistic timeline to positive net profit? Not the optimistic case. The median case for someone starting from your actual position. If the honest answer is 6 months, you need 6 months of financial stability in place before you start. The runway has to already exist. A side hustle built on honest math is still worth doing. It just looks like a longer timeline and a harder early period than the projection suggests. Knowing that before you start is what separates the people who make it to month 6 from the ones who quit at month 3, having lost money they couldn't afford to lose. The statistics on side hustle income are worth a moment. 5% of people who run a side hustle ever reach $10,000 a month. The median is $200. The average is $885, pulled upward by the people at the top of the distribution. None of that means the 5% were luckier or more talented. Most of them did one thing differently. They went in knowing the full math. They understood what their customer acquisition costs needed to be. They knew which platform fees would compress their margin. They had an honest timeline, and that knowledge didn't discourage them. It prepared them to last long enough for it to work. I've seen this hold across different income levels and different hustle types. The people who build real side income almost always started with the full picture, not the optimistic one. The income projection in these videos isn't the problem. The problem is treating it as a forecast instead of a ceiling. Run the full calculation. Include the variables that don't appear on the screen. If the math still works once everything's in, and sometimes it genuinely does, then start. If it doesn't work yet, that tells you something useful. It tells you exactly what has to change before the model turns positive. That's not a reason to stop. That's the map. If this shifted how you're thinking about any of this, there's more on this channel worth watching first. Start there.